Dad, can we help her? Mob boss protects woman from two harassers in a restaurant the next day. Something incredible happens. Comment what you thought of this story with a rating from 0 to 10 and tell me which city you're watching from. I really want to know if you like my story and get to know you better, so subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The rain fell hard over Chicago that June Tuesday, turning the streets of Lincoln Park into liquid mirrors that reflected the lights of the street lamps and designer store windows. Leo Moretti watched his daughter in the rearview mirror of the armored Cadillac as the driver took them to Villa Bella, the Italian restaurant they had frequented every Tuesday since Sofia turned 7. It was a sacred ritual between father and daughter, an island of normalcy in the turbulent ocean that was Leo's life. Sofia was 11 and had the same blue eyes as her mother Julia, who had died 3 years earlier in an accident Leo could never quite accept as such. The girl had inherited not only her mother's delicate beauty, but also her ability to see beyond appearances, to perceive the truths that adults tried to hide. Leo knew he couldn't protect her forever from the reality of who he was, but he would do everything possible to postpone that moment for as long as he could. Villa Bella was a haven of discreet elegance, with its tables covered in white linen and candles that created an intimate atmosphere despite the bustle. Leo greeted the maitre d' with a nod and headed to their usual table, in the corner that allowed him a full view of the room. It was an automatic habit cultivated over 17 years of leading the Moretti family, one of Chicago's most powerful criminal organizations. His grandfather, Vincent, had arrived from Calabria in 1950 with nothing but ambition and a twisted code of honor that he transformed into an empire built on fear, loyalty, and violence. Sofia ordered her usual gnocchi with fresh tomato and basil sauce, while Leo chose the ossobuco. The waiter brought a basket of still warm bread, and Sofia immediately took a piece, breaking it in half and releasing the scent of rosemary that hung between them. While they waited, the girl talked excitedly about her science class and how she had helped a new classmate fit in. Her eyes sparkled as she described the experiment with baking soda volcanoes, her hands gesturing enthusiastically as she recreated the controlled explosion. Leo listened with genuine attention, absorbing every detail of his daughter's life as if they were nuggets of gold. The sound of her laughter, the way she bit her lower lip when she was concentrating, the natural kindness she showed when talking about the lonely classmate. All of this he guarded as precious treasures. She was his anchor, the only thing that kept him from getting completely lost in the darkness his work demanded. It was then that Leo noticed a commotion a few tables away. Two middle-aged men, their ties loosened and faces red from having had too much to drink, were approaching a young woman dining alone. She was blonde, with her hair in a simple ponytail, wearing jeans and a white blouse that contrasted with the restaurant's sophisticated ambiance. There was something in her posture that caught Leo's attention, a quiet dignity that didn't match the evident discomfort she showed at the two men's approach. At first, the situation seemed merely inconvenient. The men were clearly trying to strike up a conversation, and the woman was responding politely, but without encouragement. Leo turned his attention back to Sofia, who was beginning to eat her gnocchi with obvious pleasure. But then he heard the woman's tone of voice change, becoming firmer, and saw one of the men place a hand on her shoulder possessively. She pulled away, asking them to leave her alone. But the other man pulled up a chair and sat at her table, uninvited, blocking her exit. Sofia stopped eating and looked at her father with that expression Leo knew well, the same one Julia had when she witnessed an injustice. The girl said nothing at first, just observed, but when she saw one of the men grab the woman's wrist tightly, pulling her as she tried to stand up, she whispered softly, but with a determination that belied her age, "Dad, can we help her?" Leo didn't hesitate. He rose with the fluidity of a predator, crossing the room in long, silent strides. The other customers were starting to notice the scene, but no one intervened, as always happened when people preferred not to get involved. When Leo reached the table, his presence alone was enough to make the two men look up, interrupting the harsh conversation they were having with the woman. "Gentlemen, I believe the lady asked to be left alone," Leo said in a low voice, but with a timbre that left no doubt it was not a suggestion. The men sized him up quickly, noticing the flawless Italian suit, the discreet but very expensive watch, and above all, the look in his eyes, utterly devoid of anything resembling fear or hesitation. It was the look of someone accustomed to being obeyed, someone whose consequences for disobedience were best left to the imagination. One of the men, the drunker one, started to get up with an air of defiance, but his companion grabbed his arm, whispering something that made his face turn pale. They backed away from the table quickly, muttering confused apologies before practically running for the exit. Leo didn't even bother to watch them leave, his attention already on the woman who remained seated, trembling slightly as she held her wine glass with both hands to hide the tremor. "I'm sorry for the intrusion," Leo said, his voice losing its threatening edge and becoming gentle. "Are you all right?" The woman looked up at him, and Leo found himself momentarily speechless before the most expressive brown eyes he had ever seen. They were eyes that had witnessed hardship, but maintained a light of hope and strength he rarely encountered in his world. She had delicate features, but there was something of a warrior in her raised chin and the shoulders that straightened, even as she clearly fought back tears. "I am, thank you," she replied, her voice hoarse with restrained emotion. I didn't expect that." She stopped, taking a deep breath to compose herself. "Thank you for stepping in. Most people just stare." Before Leo could respond, Sophia appeared by his side, having left the table against her father's standing instructions never to move away from him in public. The girl looked at the woman with genuine concern and asked, "Are you hurt? They grabbed your arm really hard." The woman blinked in surprise, and then a small but genuine smile appeared on her face. "I'm okay, sweetie. Your father got here before they could do anything worse. You're very brave to worry about a stranger." Sophia shook her head seriously. "My mom always said there are no strangers, just friends we haven't met yet. And bad people who need to be stopped, of course," she added with the simple logic of a child. Leo placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder, half embarrassed by her frankness, half proud. "Your mother was wise," the woman said, and Leo noticed the way she looked at Sophia with a mixture of tenderness and sadness that suggested a familiarity with loss. "My name is Bella," she said, extending her hand first to Sophia and then to Leo. "Bella Clark. I'm a nurse at Northwestern Memorial. I came here to treat myself after a particularly difficult shift. I didn't imagine the treat would come with drunk harassers." "Leo Moretti," he replied, shaking her hand and noticing the firmness of her grip, hands that were soft but showed signs of hard work. "And this is Sophia. May I have them bring your check to my table? It would be a pleasure for us to dine together, if you're comfortable with that." Bella hesitated, and Leo saw the conflict in her eyes. She clearly didn't want to be alone after the incident, but she also seemed uncomfortable with the idea of accepting a stranger's generosity, especially one who clearly belonged to a very different economic universe. Before she could politely refuse, Sophia took her hand and said, "Please, you can tell me about your job at the hospital. I want to be a doctor when I grow up." And so Bella ended up dining with them, initially tense but gradually relaxing, as Sophia bombarded her with questions about her profession and life. Leo watched, fascinated, as Bella told stories from the hospital with humor and humanity, never condescending despite Sophia's age, treating the girl's questions with seriousness and respect. There was something about her that touched Leo in a way he hadn't felt since he met Julia, an authenticity that was rare in his world of bought loyalties and respect based on fear. When the night ended and Leo insisted on paying Bella's bill, despite her polite protests, he offered to drive her home. Bella firmly refused, but accepted Sophia staying with her while she waited for her cab. Leo watched the two of them through the restaurant window, his daughter and the nurse chatting animatedly like old friends, and he felt something stir in his chest, something dangerous and wonderful at the same time. When the cab arrived and Bella said goodbye with a tight hug for Sophia and a grateful wave to Leo, he automatically memorized the license plate, the old habit of always knowing where the important pieces on the board were positioned. But this time, it wasn't tactical. It was a desperate desire to make sure she got home safely, that those brown eyes full of life and compassion would continue to shine in the world. "You liked her," Sophia stated on the way home. It wasn't a question. "She's nice, Dad. Different from the other women who try to get your attention." Leo didn't deny it. "She's special," he agreed, and left it at that, but they both knew something had changed on that rainy Tuesday night. The next morning, Leo woke up with Bella Clark occupying his thoughts in a way he hadn't experienced in years. During breakfast with Sophia, as he mentally reviewed a day's agenda full of meetings that would require his mask of a respectable businessman, he found himself imagining what it would be like to wake up every morning to that gentle smile, that quiet strength Bella radiated. He made a decision his advisors would have called reckless. He asked Marcus, his head of security and trusted confidant since his father's time, to discreetly find out exactly where Bella worked. It wasn't difficult. Bella Clark, 28 years old, an emergency room nurse at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, living in a rented apartment in Lakeview, the daughter of a retired doorman and a cleaning lady who was still working, graduated on a full scholarship, regularly worked double shifts, and sent money to her family on the South Side every month. The portrait that emerged was of a woman who had fought for every achievement, who knew the value of hard work and self-respect. Leo found himself even more fascinated and also worried. Bella Clark did not belong in his world of luxury and hidden dangers. She had built an honest life through genuine effort, and he had no right to drag that light into his shadows. But he couldn't stay away either. He showed up at Northwestern Memorial the following Thursday with a bouquet of white lilies, the flower Bella had mentioned she liked during dinner. He waited in the lobby until he saw her come out of the elevator, wearing her blue nurse's uniform, her hair tied back, and an expression of exhaustion that couldn't completely hide the natural beauty of her features. Bella stopped when she saw him, genuine surprise on her face. "Leo Moretti, what are you doing here? I wanted to make sure you were okay," he said, offering the flowers. "And to thank you again for being so kind to Sophia. She hasn't stopped talking about you since Tuesday." Bella accepted the flowers hesitantly, her eyes scanning Leo from his Italian shoes to the watch that probably cost more than her annual salary. There was something in her gaze that made Leo feel simultaneously exposed and hopeful, as if she could see past the expensive suit and cultivated charm to the imperfect man underneath. "You didn't have to, but thank you," she said finally. "Sophia is a wonderful girl. You're raising her very well, especially on your own." The mention of single parenting was not accidental, Leo realized. Bella had noticed the absence of a wedding ring, Sophia's references to her mother in the past tense. She was assessing the situation, deciding if this was a genuine interest or just another bored, powerful man looking for a distraction. "Would you like to get a coffee?" Leo asked, pointing to the hospital cafeteria. "I know you're probably tired, but it would be an honor to get to know you better." Bella bit her lip, clearly torn. Finally, she nodded but said, "A quick coffee. I have another shift in 6 hours and I need to get some sleep." They sat in the noisy, crowded cafeteria, so different from the elegance of Villa Bella. But Leo found he didn't care. The coffee tasted bitter and watery, the plastic chairs were uncomfortable, and the smell of hospital disinfectant mixed with old coffee permeated the air. Still, Leo couldn't remember the last time he felt so present, so connected to a moment. Bella talked about her day, about the patients she had treated, a child with asthma she had finally managed to stabilize, an elderly man who had thanked her with tears in his eyes for the care he received. She spoke about the challenges of the public health system, the lack of resources, the endless lines, but also about the satisfaction of truly making a difference in people's lives. Her fingers traced abstract patterns on the table as she spoke, and Leo found himself mesmerized by the movement. She spoke with passion, but also with a clear awareness of the system's limitations and injustices, neither romanticizing her profession nor falling into cynicism. Leo found himself telling her about Sophia, about how hard it was to balance work with single fatherhood, about the constant fear that he was failing her. He carefully edited the details, turning his criminal empire into an import-export business, which wasn't technically a lie considering he laundered money through legitimate businesses. But every word he edited, every truth he concealed, weighed on his chest like lead. Bella was too smart not to notice the gaps in his story. Leo saw the questions forming in her eyes, but she had the grace not to ask them, at least not yet. Instead, she asked about Julia, and Leo found himself talking about his late wife in a way he hadn't in years, about how they met young, about the accident that took her from him and Sophia. "I'm so sorry," Bella said, placing her hand on his on the table. "It's hard to raise a child alone, especially when the grief is still fresh." 3 years, Leo corrected. "It should be easier by now, but some days it feels like it happened yesterday." They talked until Bella's coffee grew cold, and then they talked some more. When she finally said she really had to go, Leo found himself not wanting to let her leave. He asked for her number, and Bella hesitated again before giving it, making it clear she was stepping out of her comfort zone. In the following days, Leo found himself texting Bella, simple conversations about their day, about Sophia, about nothing and everything at once. She replied when she could between shifts, and Leo found he waited for those messages with an anticipation he hadn't felt in years. It was different with Bella. She didn't treat him with the nervous deference most people showed, nor did she try to impress him or get favors. She was just herself, honest and direct in a way that was both refreshing and terrifying. Sophia noticed the change in her father. "You're smiling more," she observed during Sunday breakfast. "Is it because of Bella?" Leo didn't try to deny it. "She's a special person," he admitted, "but it's complicated, Princess. Our lives are very different." Sophia looked at him with that unnerving wisdom she sometimes displayed. "Mom always said that love doesn't care about complications. It only cares if people are good for each other." Leo smiled sadly, wishing it were that simple. But there were so many things Sophia didn't know, so many dark truths about who her father really was. How could he build something real with Bella when his entire life was based on secrets and lies? But despite all the logical reasons to stay away, Leo found himself creating opportunities to see Bella. Casual meetings that weren't casual, always with Sophia present as an unintentional chaperone. The girl and the nurse developed a genuine friendship, and Leo watched, fascinated, as Bella treated his daughter with the same respect and attention she gave any adult. Bella took them to Lincoln Park on a sunny Saturday, teaching Sophia about the different species of trees and birds, with the knowledge of someone who had grown up appreciating the simple things because the expensive ones were out of reach. She pointed to the golden yellow blossoms on the trees, explained how chickadees got their name from their distinctive call, showed them raccoon tracks near the pond. Sophia absorbed it all with fascination, asking questions that Bella answered with infinite patience. Leo, accustomed to expensive and exclusive outings, discovered there was more joy in a simple picnic on the grass than in all the 5-star restaurants he frequented. The sun, filtering through the leaves, created dancing patterns on the extended blanket. The smell of freshly cut grass mixed with the simple sandwiches Bella had brought. Sophia's genuine laughter as she chased butterflies, all of it composed a picture of domestic happiness Leo never knew he wanted until he experienced it. "You're different when you're with her," Marcus observed one evening, after Leo had dismissed the conspicuous security for a walk with Bella and Sophia through a local market. "Lighter, more like you were before you took over the family." Leo knew Marcus was right, and he also knew it was dangerous. Men in his position couldn't afford to be light, to let their guard down. But with Bella, he allowed himself to imagine a different life, a life where he didn't have to carry the weight of an empire built on others' misery. The weeks turned into months, and the relationship between Leo and Bella evolved from cautious friendship to something deeper and infinitely more complicated. The first kiss happened on an August night, after Leo had taken her home from dinner, just the two of them for the first time without Sophia as a buffer. Bella invited him up for coffee, and they talked in her small but cozy apartment, decorated with plants and family photos. There was an intimacy in that space that all the square footage of Leo's mansion couldn't replicate. The walls were decorated with family photos in simple frames, parents smiling despite worn clothes, a proud younger brother holding his high school diploma, a younger Bella on her first day at the hospital, her eyes shining with hope and determination. Potted plants filled the small balcony, a hanging garden of aromatic herbs that Bella tended with care. The sofa was old but comfortable, with colorful blankets that told stories of winter and lonely nights. Bella talked about her dreams of doing a medical residency, about her younger brother trying to get into engineering school, about her mother who could finally retire if Bella got a promotion. She spoke with a distant look in her eyes, imagining a future where she didn't have to work double shifts, where she could study without the constant worry of bills. She spoke without shame of her humble origins, without apologizing for not being part of Chicago's high society, and Leo admired her even more for that unshakable dignity. Leo found himself telling truths he normally concealed, about how he felt trapped by his family's legacy, about how he feared Sophia would one day hate him when she found out who he really was. Bella listened without judgment, and when he finished, she simply said, "Everyone has choices, Leo. The past shapes us, but it doesn't define our future. You're being the best father you can be for Sophia. That counts more than anything." It was in that moment, hearing those simple words of acceptance and understanding, that Leo knew he was completely in love. And when he leaned in to kiss her, Bella didn't pull away. The kiss was gentle at first, a careful exploration, but it quickly deepened into something more urgent, years of loneliness and emotional need pouring out in that contact. When they broke apart, both breathing heavily, Bella said in a hoarse voice, "I don't normally do this. Let things move so fast." "I know," Leo replied, resting his forehead against hers. "I don't either. But with you, everything feels different. Better." They started seeing each other more regularly after that, stealing moments between Bella's shifts and Leo's responsibilities. He never took her to the social events he frequented, and Bella noticed but didn't comment. Leo knew she sensed something was wrong, that his explanations about his work didn't quite add up, but she gave him the space to reveal the truth in his own time. What Leo didn't realize was that his time was running out. Bobby Costello, a longtime rival of the Moretti family and leader of a rival criminal faction operating on the North Side, had noticed the closeness between Leo and the nurse. Bobby was a cruel and pragmatic man who saw others' emotions only as tools for manipulation, and Leo Moretti in love was Leo Moretti vulnerable. The trap was set with surgical precision. On a Wednesday night, as Bella was leaving the hospital after a 12-hour shift, 3 men approached her in the parking garage. The sound of her heels echoed on the empty concrete, the dim lighting creating menacing shadows between the cars. She noticed the men too late, her exhaustion slowing her reflexes. There was no initial violence, just chloroform and professional efficiency. The world tilted and went dark before she could scream. When Bella woke up, she was in an abandoned warehouse in an industrial area outside the city, tied to a chair. Her hands were numb from the tight ropes, her mouth dry, her head throbbing where it had hit something hard during the abduction. The smell of mold and chemicals filled the air, with Bobby Costello sitting in front of her, smiling like a predator who had just caught the perfect prey. She forced herself to stay calm, to breathe deeply, to access the emergency training she'd received at the hospital on how to handle trauma situations. Leo got the news through Marcus, who was alerted when Bella didn't arrive home at her expected time and wasn't answering her phone. The discreet security Leo had placed around her, without her knowledge, reported the kidnapping immediately. The video arrived half an hour later, Bobby holding the face of Bella, who was clearly drugged but conscious, forcing her to look at the camera. "Leo Moretti," Bobby said with false courtesy. "What a surprise to find that the great boss of the Moretti family has a heart after all. And what a vulnerable heart you've chosen, a little nurse, Moretti. You've really come down from your pedestal. But maybe it's good for you to learn that in this world. To love is to give your enemy a weapon." The video ended with Bobby possessively stroking Bella's hair, and Leo felt a murderous fury he had never experienced before. It wasn't the cold, calculated anger he used in business. It was something primitive and absolute, the roar of a predator whose territory had been invaded. He mobilized all of the family's resources, every contact, every debt to be collected. Marcus coordinated the teams with military efficiency, while Leo personally interrogated informants using methods he normally delegated to others. Sophia was safe in the mansion with doubled security, crying for the woman who had become so important in her life. It took 6 hours to locate the warehouse. 6 hours that felt like 6 years, every minute an eternity of terrible possibilities, every second imagining what Bobby might be doing to Bella. Leo smoked an entire pack of cigarettes, a habit he had quit years ago, while Marcus coordinated the search. His hands trembled, not with fear, but with contained rage. When they finally got the location from an informant Bobby had underestimated, Leo personally led the rescue operation. Something he hadn't done in years, abandoning all prudence in favor of speed. He put on the bulletproof vest, checked his gun with automatic movements, and got in the car without a word. When they stormed the place, the shootout was brief but intense. The smell of gunpowder, the deafening sound of weapons, the shouts of Bobby's men, it all merged into a cacophony of violence. Bobby tried to use Bella as a human shield, pressing a gun to her temple, but Leo was faster, a single, precise shot that took down his rival without touching the hostage. Years of training and instinct converged in that moment, the perfect trajectory that saved the woman he loved. Bella was conscious but in shock when Leo cut her bonds, her wide eyes recognizing not the gentle man who had courted her, but the criminal he truly was. Leo, with blood splattered on his suit, holding a gun with the familiarity of someone who had used it countless times, was a terrifying and revealing sight. He tried to help her up, but Bella instinctively pulled away, fear momentarily replacing every other feeling. Leo felt something break inside him at that look, but there would be time to process later. First, he had to get her out of there safely. On the way to the hospital, with Bella being examined by paramedics in the private ambulance Leo had brought, she finally spoke. "Who are you, really? And don't give me that import-export story." Leo didn't try to lie this time. He told her everything, from his grandfather who founded the organization to his own forced rise to power, from the illegal businesses to Julia's suspicious death that he believed had been ordered by a rival family. Bella listened in silence, her face a careful mask that didn't reveal what she was thinking. When he finished, she said simply, "I need time to process all of this, to decide if I can have this in my life." Leo nodded, accepting the rejection he knew he deserved. "I understand, but please, accept the security I'm going to arrange. Bobby may be dead, but there are others who might try to use you to get to me." Bella reluctantly agreed, and Leo left her at the hospital under medical care and armed guard. He returned home to find Sophia crying in her room, being comforted by the housekeeper. The girl ran to him when he entered, hugging him tightly. "Is she okay?" Sophia asked through sobs. "Is Bella okay?" "Physically, yes," Leo replied, hugging his daughter. "But emotionally, I don't know, Princess. I messed everything up. The following days were the hardest Leo had faced since Julia's death. Bella didn't answer his texts, didn't accept his calls. She continued to work at the hospital, but always with discreet security guards around, living her life as if Leo didn't exist. Sophia was devastated, losing her appetite and interest in the activities she used to love. It was the girl who finally forced a confrontation. 3 weeks after the kidnapping, Sophia called Bella from Leo's cell phone while he was in a meeting. The nurse answered, thinking it was him, ready to hang up immediately, but paused when she heard Sophia's voice. "Please don't hang up," the girl pleaded. "I know you're mad at my dad, and I know he lied. But he lied because he's scared, Bella. Scared that people will find out who he is and walk away, like my mom walked away. Like you're walking away now." Bella took a deep breath on the other end of the line. "Sophia, sweetie, it's more complicated than that." "I know it's complicated," Sophia insisted. "I know my dad does bad things. But I also know he's a good person deep down. He takes care of me. He protects the people he loves. He tries to do what's right even when it's hard. And he loves you, Bella, even if he's scared to say it." There was a long silence, and then Bella said softly, "I love him too, Sophia. But love isn't always enough, especially when there's so much danger involved. My mum used to say that true love is choosing to stay even when it would be easier to leave," Sophia said, repeating words Julia had often said. "You don't have to decide now. Just, please, don't give up on him completely." After that call, Bella agreed to meet with Leo, but only in a public place during the day. They sat on the same park bench in Lincoln Park, where they had had a picnic with Sophia. The distance between them on the bench, measuring the emotional chasm Leo's secret had created. "I grew up on the South Side," Bella began without preamble. "My dad worked 16-hour days as a doorman, and my mom cleaned the houses of rich people who barely looked at her. I saw my older brother get recruited by a gang when he was 15. I saw him die at 17 in a turf war. I swore I would never let that world touch me again, that I would build an honest life through hard work and dedication." Leo listened in silence, every word a just accusation. "And then I met you," Bella continued, looking at him finally. "And you were different from any man I had ever met. Kind, attentive, a wonderful father. I was starting to believe I could have something good, something real. And then I found out you are exactly the kind of person who took my brother from me, who feeds the cycle of violence that destroyed my family." "I know," Leo said, his voice hoarse, "and I hate myself for it. But I can't change who I am, Bella. The blood that runs in my veins, the name I carry, the responsibilities I inherited, it's all a part of me." "Then maybe it's best we end it here," Bella said, tears streaming down her face, "before anyone else gets hurt." Leo nodded, accepting the decision, even as something inside him died. "But before I go, I need you to know one thing. When I met you for the first time in 17 years, I saw the possibility of being something more than what my last name dictates. You and Sophia showed me that another life is possible. Even if I'm not strong enough to reach for it, thank you for showing me it exists." Bella stood up to leave, but paused, looking at Leo with a mixture of love and pain. You are strong enough, Leo. The question is if you want to be. She walked away, leaving Leo alone on the bench with those words echoing in his mind. He went home, where Sophia was waiting anxiously. When she saw her father's face, she knew the outcome of the conversation immediately. They hugged in silence, two broken hearts trying to comfort each other. But Bella's words wouldn't leave him alone. You are strong enough. The question is if you want to be. Leo spent sleepless nights staring at the ceiling of the room he had once shared with Julia, thinking about the legacy he was building for Sophia. What kind of father was he? Teaching his daughter by example that violence and crime were acceptable paths. He began to research possibilities. He secretly spoke with lawyers specializing in plea bargains, with accountants who could help legitimize the family's businesses, with people who had left organized crime and lived to tell the tale. It wouldn't be easy or fast or without tremendous risks, but it was possible. The Moretti family reacted with shock and anger when Leo finally called a meeting and laid out his plan. The boardroom, with its mahogany table and leather chairs, witnessed a storm of protests. There were men who had served his grandfather, loyal to the old traditions and code, veterans of turf wars who saw any change as a betrayal. Their wrinkled faces contorted in indignation as they slammed their fists on the table. There were cousins who depended on the illegal profits to support their extravagant lifestyles, arrogant young men who had never worked an honest day in their lives. They accused him of weakness, of dishonoring Vincent's memory. There were allies who would see his exit as weakness and an opportunity to seize control, hyenas waiting for the lion to show vulnerability. Leo listened to it all in silence, letting the anger dissipate like smoke, maintaining his firm posture and unwavering gaze. But Leo had something they didn't, the true loyalty of the men who mattered. Marcus, his head of security, was the first to publicly support him. "I've been with you since we were kids," he said in front of everyone. "If you want to build something better for Sophia, then I'll help you build it." Others followed, men tired of the constant violence, the prisons, the broken families. Not all of them, and not without resistance, but enough. Leo began transferring control of the illegal operations to willing partners, negotiating exit deals that guaranteed his family's safety in exchange for non-interference in the territories he was leaving behind. The process took months, and it was dangerous. There were coup attempts, narrowly avoided assassinations, tense negotiations with authorities who wanted to see Leo in prison, but could be convinced to accept his cooperation in exchange for partial immunity. Through it all, Leo kept Sophia isolated, protected, but also informed. He told her, in age-appropriate terms, what he was doing and why. Bella found out through Sophia, who kept in touch with the nurse, even though Leo had respected her request for distance. The girl excitedly talked about how her father was changing, about the legitimate businesses he was building, about how they were moving to a smaller, more normal house without armed guards on every corner. Bella didn't seek out Leo, but he knew through Marcus, who maintained the discreet security around her, that she was watching his transformation from afar. It was enough for now. Leo didn't expect immediate forgiveness, nor did he deserve it. But he needed to prove, first to himself and Sophia, and then maybe to Bella, that he was capable of real change. The decisive moment came on a December night, almost a year after meeting Bella at Villa Bella. Leo had finally completed the transfer of the last significant illegal operation, keeping only the legitimate import-export businesses that, ironically, had been his original cover story. He was free, or as free as a man with his past could be. Sophia was asleep when the doorbell rang. Leo answered it himself, having dismissed most of the security staff, and found Bella at the door. She was wet from the rain that had started to fall, her hair loose around her shoulders, her eyes shining with an emotion Leo couldn't decipher. "Can I come in?" she asked. Leo stepped aside. allowing her into the house that was now smaller but infinitely cozier than the ostentatious mansion. Bella looked around, noticing the changes, photos of Sophia on the walls instead of expensive art, comfortable furniture instead of designer pieces, a house that looked truly lived in. "Sophia told me what you've been doing," Bella said finally, "about how you're changing your life." "I'm trying," Leo corrected. "I still have a lot to do, a lot of amends to make. But I'm building something I won't be ashamed to leave for Sophia. Something honest." "Why?" Bella asked, looking directly into his eyes. "Why are you doing all of this?" Leo could have given several answers. He could have talked about Sophia, about wanting to be a better example, about being tired of the violence, about wanting to sleep without fear of waking up to news of another attack. But the truth was simpler and more complex. "Because you showed me there's another way to live," he said honestly. "Because when I looked in your eyes in that park and saw the disappointment, I realized I had a choice. I could keep being the man my last name dictates, or I could try to be the man you and Sophia deserve. And even if you never forgive me, even if we can never have what we started to build, I had to try, for me, for Sophia, and yes, for you too." Bella was silent for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. Then she said, "I can't pretend that everything is okay, that who you were doesn't matter, because it does. But who you're trying to become also matters. And I want to be there to see that transformation, if you'll let me." Leo felt hope bloom in his chest for the first time in months. "It won't be easy," he warned. "There are still people from my past who might try to use you to get to me. There are still consequences of my choices that will follow me for years. I can't promise complete safety or a life without complications." Bella smiled through her tears. "I grew up on the South Side, Leo. Complete safety was never an option for me. But true love, real commitment, a partnership based on honesty and respect. I've never had that. And I think that's worth fighting for." They kissed right there in the middle of the modest living room, with the rain drumming against the windows, sealing a commitment that was both a beginning and a continuation. It wasn't the end of a fairy tale, where all problems magically resolved themselves. It was something better. The conscious choice of two imperfect adults to build something real together, despite and because of their scars. Sophia appeared at the top of the stairs a moment later, her hair messy from sleep, her eyes widening when she saw Bella in the house. She ran down and threw herself into the nurse's arms, who held her tight as Leo watched them with a smile that didn't hide the tears in his own eyes. "You came back," Sophia said, her voice muffled against Bella's shoulder. "I came back," Bella confirmed, looking over the girl's head at Leo. "And this time, I'm staying." The following months were about adjustment and learning. Leo had to learn to live without the absolute power he had once wielded, accepting that he was now just another businessman in a city full of them. Bella had to learn to trust again, to believe that Leo's change was genuine and lasting. Sophia flourished with a complete family, finally having the mother figure she had so desperately wanted. They faced challenges. Bella's family took time to accept Leo, especially when they learned about his past. Some of Leo's former associates tried to drag him back, using blackmail or threats. The authorities kept him under surveillance for years, suspecting the transformation was just a facade. But through it all, they remained united. Leo proved his change through consistent actions, building legitimate businesses that employed people from Bella's community, using his logistics experience to create real opportunities. Bella continued her work at the hospital, eventually getting the medical residency she had always dreamed of, with Leo supporting her every step of the way. Sophia grew up in a home full of love and honesty, learning that people can change, that past mistakes don't define the future, and that family is built through daily choices of commitment and mutual care. She never forgot her biological mother, But she gained a second mother in Bella who loved her unconditionally. 3 years after that rainy December night, Leo and Bella were married in a simple ceremony in a small chapel on the south side, surrounded by both their families. There was no ostentatious luxury or a guest list full of important names. Instead, there was genuine love, real community, and the promise of two survivors from different worlds to build something better together than anything they had apart. When Leo placed the ring on Bella's finger, looking into the brown eyes that had changed the course of his life, he whispered, "Thank you for showing me it's never too late to choose to be better." Bella smiled, squeezing his hand. "Thank you for making that choice every day." And as Sophia clapped beside them, radiant in her flower girl dress, Leo knew he had finally found what he had been searching for his whole life without knowing it. Redemption through love, a family built on truth, and the peace that comes from living a life that honors not the name he carries, but the people he chooses to protect and love. The Moretti Empire was still remembered on the streets of Chicago, but now it was associated not with fear and violence, but with the story of the man who had the courage to leave it all behind in search of something more valuable. And on quiet nights, when Leo held Bella and heard Sophia laugh in the next room, he knew he had made the right choice. Love had not only saved his soul, but it had given him the chance to be the man he could have always been, if only he'd had the courage to try. If you liked this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring you videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment what you thought of my story with a rating from 0 to 10, and thank you very much.